The Republicans are trying to interfere with Democratic politics again, trying to open up an investigation against Andrew Cuomo because he's the leading candidate for mayor of New York. And they loved Mayor Adams, and they want to try to help Mayor Adams. Isn't it obvious? Isn't it transparent? If it's not, let me break it down for you on Legal AF, the podcast. Here's a clip.
So what's happening now is Eric Adams is running for re-election again, but he's running as an independent. He's no longer a Democrat. And so the Democratic primary is coming up June 24th. And the person who's leading the Democratic primary is none other than Andrew Cuomo. So everybody thinks he's going to be the Democratic, or has a good chance of being the Democratic nominee. And so he's, and really that's who typically wins in New York City is whoever the Democrat is. So it's likely going to be Eric Adams versus Andrew Cuomo in the next election. And lo and behold, here the Justice Department is announced that they are investigating Andrew Cuomo. And look, Andrew Cuomo was the governor of New York, and he left in kind of a scandal of his own. There was a couple of issues he had. He had a sexual harassment issue, a pretty big one, and so he left in kind of disgrace, frankly. And there was also always this question about COVID and his handling of COVID. Some people loved him. You know, he was in some ways the country's mayor. He talked on, my mother in Southern California listened to the news, and there's something about Andrew Cuomo that comforted her, talking her through the COVID, the pandemic. And so there's a lot of people who have a lot of positive feelings about him as well. But he was a governor who was punishing. He was a difficult governor. He didn't have a lot of people who loved him from he's not easy to work with, put it this way. And in fact, I've been on the other end of one of his rants. It's not fun. He's viewed as someone, though, because he's kind of a strong personality, as someone who could potentially take on Donald Trump and be strong enough to take on Donald Trump despite his flaws. And the sexual harassment stuff, which frankly I don't love. But there are people who think, but yet he might be able to be strong enough to take on Trump. And in some ways, I think that's going to be the fuel that propels him into office. I think there are people who are afraid that Eric Adams is going to kowtow to Trump, and Andrew Cuomo will stand up to him because he's mean enough to do it. And that's kind of his reputation. And so what does Trump do? Coincidentally, he opens an investigation into Andrew Cuomo. And here the investigation is about how during COVID, Cuomo moved elder patients from the hospitals into nursing homes, and the death rate in those nursing homes went up by 50%. This was a death sentence, that he lied about the numbers, is what the accusation is. And that's what they're looking into, whether or not this is, they're talking about things like Ed Martin, who you talked about, is talking about things like manslaughter and negligent homicide. And that's what they're looking at him for. And this was a long time ago, but they're looking at the false statements that they say he made to a subcommittee that was investigating the New York COVID response. And they're saying Cuomo lied during this testimony. So that's what's going on here. But it's just more politicization and more weaponization, Dina. I mean, this is what they're doing.
Yeah, I mean, the fact that they didn't bring this investigation or announce the investigation until the election is right around the corner is obviously so concerning, because to your point, this has to do with his testimony in 2020 regarding the assisted living facilities and whether or not he was involved in the making of those reports. He told the House that he wasn't, and now there's maybe evidence that he was. The House did refer him for criminal prosecution for him potentially lying to them. The Biden DOJ didn't take it up. The Trump DOJ could have taken this up way back in January, right? This isn't a new development. It's not a new fact. They thought they were going to have Eric Adams at their mercy because, as you know, they didn't just want to dismiss it. They wanted to dismiss it without prejudice, which meant they could refile. And to our kind of earlier conversation when you talked about career DOJ people and are they going to follow with these kind of lawless orders or resign, the attorneys that resigned made a difference because the judge then appointed an independent person to advise him on how to handle this because it had become obviously a very disputed issue within the Department of Justice. And he ended up getting that Eric Adams had it dismissed without prejudice, which meant it wasn't like Trump couldn't hold it over his head, which I think was a win, even though you could still argue that it wasn't really a win because it got dismissed. But at least it got dismissed in a way that it was less of a quid pro quo, like I'm going to hold this over you and you're going to be the mayor of New York and I could always refile. And that was a direct result of all those prosecutors quitting. So quitting does make a difference. In terms of Cuomo, I mean, you just can't think of like the timing of this is huge because look at, we just talked about Alina Habba investigating the sanctuary cities, right? They have said they plan on going after officials in sanctuary cities. Karen Bass in LA, it's just a matter of time before they start looking into her. Having somebody like Andrew Cuomo, who people across the country thought he does a very good job at standing up to Trump. Trump knows how difficult going head to head with Andrew Cuomo would be in this fight that they plan on bringing to sanctuary cities. They know he's going to be a formidable force. So the timing of this, along with all the other acts of weaponization they do, certainly seems like but you know what? It could be the kind of thing like, Trump said the prosecution of him emboldened his base. I don't know. I mean, you're in New York, Karen, but I could see emboldening actually Democrats, the fact that he's going after him so close to the election. They may want to vote for Cuomo even more because they want somebody to stand up to Trump. Yeah. So this might actually help him.
I think so. I think so completely. I think this is the reason people would vote for him. And I think Trump and the Department of Justice knows that, which is why I think they are going after him in order to try to neutralize that. At least they're going to try. And Cuomo, I guess, is the person to stand up to him. I don't know. Like I said, I struggle with this because he is a flawed individual. And the fact that he was investigated and is fighting. First of all, do you realize that the taxpayers in New York are footing his legal bills to the tune of, I think it's like $60 million in legal fees to fight these sexual harassment suits? There's a lot of women, there's a lot of people. And, but if he's the only one who can stand up to Trump, then so be it. So, but it's hard for me as a New Yorker to things like integrity used to matter, right? Things like not being a sexual harasser or a rapist used to matter. But now I guess that is something that makes you strong and tough and can be president of the United States or can be mayor of New York City. I don't know. I miss the days when things like ethics and integrity mattered and we cared about those things. And now it just seems like all we care about is showing how tough you are and how you can just flout the laws and the rules and the norms and the ethics and just whoever's, you're a sucker. If you lose and I win, but you followed the rules and I didn't, you're a sucker. You're weak. And that's how they look at it. And they laugh about it. And it's just not my kind of person. I don't like that.
Welcome back. We do a podcast called Legal AF. We've done it for the last 5 years. The intersection of law and politics. We do it on Wednesdays and Saturdays at 8 p.m. Eastern time on the Midas Touch Network. And then, of course, we rebroadcast it, if you will, over here on Legal AF, the YouTube, because we want to be one-stop shopping for all things law and politics. We're building this channel with our bare hands and with your help. We're going to hit 700,000 in no time with your help. Hit the subscribe button. We got a Legal AF Substack. Legal AF, the Substack, where we've got amazing content you can't find anywhere else on the intersection of law and politics, including a morning briefing of mine we call Morning AF. What else? So until my next podcast, Wednesdays, Saturdays, 8 p.m. Eastern time, Legal AF, or right here on this Legal AF YouTube channel, I'm Michael Popak. Can't get your fill of Legal AF? Me neither. That's why we formed the Legal AF Substack. Every time we mention something in a hot take, whether it's a court filing or a oral argument, come over to the Substack. You'll find the court filing and the oral argument there, including a daily roundup that I do called, wait for it, Morning AF. What else? All the other contributors from Legal AF are there as well. We got some new reporting. We got interviews. We got ad-free versions of the podcast and hot takes. Where? Legal AF on Substack. Come over now to free subscribe.